It's the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in.
So walk us through the beginning. What was it like, buying your first property, that whole experience? Tell us more about how that was.
Okay. So when I first started thinking about buying a property, when I graduated from college, I was 21, fresh out of school, and I said, Dad, I want to buy a two-family house. And I remember he told me I should wait until I get a husband to buy a house. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. so, and so what I did is I utilized an FHA and I purchased a townhouse in Northern Virginia.
Mm,
This was in 2004. And my plan was essentially live in that house for, about a year and then rent it out and buy your next one. So a lot of people call it house hacking. So essentially that was my plan. I purchased that house, lived in it for exactly 12 months. In the summer of 2005, I went and purchased a condo and rented out the townhouse. And after that, the market crashed. So I actually was forced into becoming a landlord. And it kind of just blossomed from there. But that's essentially how it started, using that FHA, putting down, I think it's 3.5%, and just having that strategy of live there for a year, go on to the next one, and let's just keep growing. I definitely have more of a buy and hold type of mentality, so I was never really interested in flipping it. It was more or less, let's see what we can acquire along the way by utilizing that strategy. So that's how I started out.
for sure. And you mentioned that also during that period of time, the market crashed. What was it like at that time, like for you, just having those properties and things probably seeming like it changed overnight?
Yeah, it was crazy. So it was the best learning situation though. Like like I said, I was very young at the time. I purchased the property. And at the time, like, I bought my first townhouse. I think I spent 237 for it. Within a year it went up to 350. I should have, in hindsight, I wish I would have sold it, but I held on to it and rented it out. And then, like I said, I bought the condo. I bought the condo for 240. The following year, a lot of people always say 2008 is the year that the market crashed. 2006, you felt it. The following year, which was '06, I went to try to sell it and it was already down about 10, 15,000. At the time, nobody really thought it was going to crash in the way that it did. So I was kind of like, oh, wait it out and, it'll go back up. By 2008, they were selling for like 60, $70,000. So a property that I spent around 250 for was essentially going for less peanuts compared to what I spent on, for it. And history, the market crash lasted, for quite some time before it actually rebounded. During that time, I did take advantage of buying, a couple other properties, and that's when I started to move more into the multifamily realm instead of single family properties. But it was definitely a crazy time. It was a crazy time when it was going before the market crash, because the moment that a property would go on the market, I'm talking like the first day, there would be like 20 contracts on it. People were bidding like $20,000 over asking. Like,
Wow.
it was like bananas. And like I said, when it crashed, it crashed. Even the property that I said went up from 237 to 350 in one year, that went down to like 50, 60,000 too. So I mean, these properties dropped, and when they dropped so much that it was scary. It was like, okay, when is this ever going to rebound? And what am I going to do with this property that I owe X amount on and it's only worth a third or a fourth of what I paid for it. So it was a crazy time, but I learned so much from it. If something like that ever happens again, I'm like going all in.
Yeah.
That's what I learned. Go all in. I wish I would have gone and bought like 20 of those properties, back then. But at the time, like I said, I was very young and just wasn't thinking in that way. I was more fearful of it versus looking at the opportunity.
For sure, for sure. Were you able to keep those properties at that time during the market
Yes.
crash?
Yes, so during the market crash, I was able to keep it because I mean the rental market was still pretty strong.
Mm,
So I never had a problem renting it. Especially Northern Virginia is such a transient area. There's always people in and out. You have the military bases, my vacancy rate here was like pretty much zero. Like I never had a problem with vacancies. So I just decided to ride it out. I know a lot of people did like, short sales and things of that nature. I was more inclined to keep my credit right. So I never even thought about doing a short sale or trying to, just force a foreclosure. So I just held on to it, and I ended up, one of them I actually just sold in November. I'm doing a 1031 exchange with it, and I made six figures on it. So, I mean, if riding it out for me was the best option,
Right.
because eventually it rebounds, and then you're
Mm.
building equity on it as you make payments and things of that nature. So, I mean, for me, I just rolled it out. I just rode the wave.
Definitely. Got it. Got it. So you also mentioned that you were able to pick up a couple properties during that period of time, the market crash. Can you talk to us more about that and what that was like? Because a lot of people may be too afraid or kind of hesitant to kind of scoop up properties during a time like that, even though to some it might seem like the obvious thing to do.
Mhm. So, like I said, in hindsight, it's definitely the right thing to do. I wish I would have picked up more. So, basically, once the market crashed, I started to look towards my hometown. Northern Virginia is so expensive in general, anyway. I don't know if anyone is familiar with the DC market, but the DC market is like really expensive. So, I started looking at my hometown, Rochester, New York. In terms of how can I leverage some of the properties there. Rochester is a place that it's a medium-sized city. I think the metro area is about 1 million people. That's the metro area. The city proper, maybe 250,000 people. So not a huge city. And so what typically happens with more of those smaller, medium-sized cities is they don't feel the crashes in the way that the large cities feel. So the properties there had crashed a little bit, but it was still, not as risky, I felt, because it wasn't crashing in the way that it was in other places. And the first multifamily property that I bought up there, I bought a two-family, and it was $70,000. So I'm like, you can't really beat that. It's a two family. It was renting for 700 on each side. This was 2010, and it was $70,000. So that
Wow.
was the first multifamily property that I purchased, and it was a great investment. The property has since gone up quite a bit, but the Rochester market is actually Rochester, Buffalo, Cleveland, all those cities in that Great Lakes region are still, to me, fairly inexpensive when you really think about the amount of rent that comes in as compared to the price. So I started to just focus on the Rochester area, knowing that it's probably not going to fall too much. And I was right. Essentially, I bought it in 2010. It didn't fall at all, actually. It just continued to kind of moderately go up, which was, great for me. And once I did that, the rest is kind of history. I've always focused mainly on Rochester. I've thought about other areas, but I would say one of the biggest things for me is knowing the area, because I thought about Baltimore, right? Baltimore is right now, a lot of people are talking about Baltimore being the next gentrified place.
Mm.
But for me, I like to know the city because I can, if somebody tells me a street in Rochester, I know, okay, if you're on that particular street, once you get to that street, it may be a little different than if you're, a little bit south, right? I know the city very well. So it was easy for me to kind of capitalize on the market at that time and know which areas to invest in. So that was kind of my strategy during the market crash, and I just continued to do that. I don't think my strategy has actually changed very much since then, because for me, like I said, I really am into the more buy and hold strategy anyway. So yeah.
Definitely. Is a couple follow-up questions. But the first thing is something you mentioned, I think is very important that people kind of gloss over. A lot of people want to go for what's popular. They want to go for, what's in the news, what's online, as far as like where to invest. Um, but they forget something that you mentioned. It's important to know the city. It's important to know the city and not just like blindly invest just because someone said it was cool or you thought it was a good idea. It's important to know the city. So I think it's great that you mentioned that, and I'm sure knowing the city has helped you as you've continued to grow your portfolio out there.
Absolutely.
Hi everyone, Sam here from the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Make sure to hit that notification bell and that subscribe button and to visit us at blackrealestatedialogue.com.